What's going on, everyone? Tonight on Sportcenter, the conversation turned to Lauri Markkanen and the very real possibility that his name could start circulating in trade talks involving the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, this isn't just speculation out of nowhere. This is rooted in both his recent play and the financial realities that surround him. First, let's set the stage. Markkanen has been nothing short of dominant in international play. During Eurobasket, he ranked third in scoring behind Luka Doncic and Giannis Antetokounmpo, two of the biggest names in world basketball. That kind of company speaks volumes about his talent. He's shown he can be a go-to scorer at that level, dropping points with ease, stretching the floor, and proving to be a matchup nightmare. Of course, the natural question is, how much of that production translates back to the NBA on a consistent basis? That's where the discussion gets interesting. Last season with Utah, Markkanen put up 19 points per game, but context mattered. The Jazz weren't competing to win. They were in the middle of a tank, sitting players for weeks at a time and prioritizing the future over present results. So the stats, while impressive, need to be viewed carefully. Because we also know from his past production, 23 points one year, 25.6 the next, that Markkanen is capable of putting up elite numbers when given the role and opportunity. He's proven himself as a reliable 20 to 25 points per game scorer in this league. That kind of consistency doesn't just vanish. And here's where the Lakers come in. On SportsCenter, the panel emphasized that Markkanen could be an intriguing fit in Los Angeles. He wouldn't have to be the number one option. That's still LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But he could slot in perfectly as a high-level third scorer, the kind of versatile piece that championship teams lean on. The comparison came up. You don't always need a clear-cut second star to win. Look at Denver with Jokic. Jamal Murray has always faced questions about whether he's truly a number two, but when paired with strong complementary pieces like Aaron Gordon, suddenly it all works. Giannis and the Bucks had a similar formula. Middleton and Drew Holiday weren't traditional superstar seconds, but together they provided enough alongside a transcendent leader to win a title. The same logic applies here. With Markkanen, you're not asking him to carry a franchise. You're asking him to fill gaps, to give you 20-plus points efficiently, to hit big shots, and to give you lineup flexibility. And that's another key factor, the positional versatility. At 7 feet tall, he can slide between the 3, the 4, and even serve as a small ball 5. You can play him next to another big, you can use him as a stretch 4, and in certain lineups, he can even anchor the middle. That's the kind of versatility the Lakers have been missing. Imagine a front court with DeAndre Ayton and Lauri Markkanen, two skilled 7-footers who can score in different ways, opening up the floor for everyone else. That's the type of roster construction that takes you from good to dangerous. And when you think long-term, especially in a post-LeBron era, the idea becomes even more appealing. Picture Luka Doncic. Yes, his name came up in the conversation, running the show with Ayton and Markkanen flanking him. Neither one of those bigs has to be the definitive second option, but collectively, they can give you close to 60 points on any given night. That's the formula modern championship teams are built on. Now, there's no denying Markkanen's offensive skill set. He's not as explosive as someone like Michael Porter Jr. when that guy is locked in, but he's steadier. He's a better catch-and-shoot threat, more reliable in spacing the floor, and more comfortable playing off the ball, playing next to LeBron, and eventually alongside someone like Luka down the line. That matters. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective, which makes him a plug-and-play fit in a system that already revolves around stars. But of course, and this is where the panel really focused, there's always the financial reality. Markkanen isn't being paid like a role player. He's making superstar money. This season alone, his salary is just over $46 million, essentially $47 million. And that number stretches long-term. The Lakers, who are already pressed up against the first tax apron, can't just absorb that kind of money without sending significant salary out in return. That means any deal for Markkanen would likely involve multiple pieces going out in exchange for one player, and then the team would have to scramble to fill roster spots around the margin. And here's the dilemma. Supposedly, the Lakers don't want to tie themselves down with more long-term salary, especially with so much uncertainty about what the roster will look like after LeBron eventually retires. Yet, new reports suggest that the team has softened its stance a little when it comes to making the right kind of upgrade. And Markkanen fits the profile. He's not a traditional 3-and-D wing like Andrew Wiggins, but he's a floor spacer with size, someone who can defend competently, and above all, someone who can raise the ceiling of your offense instantly. That's where the conversation began tonight, and that's where the intrigue truly lies. Is Lauri Markkanen simply too expensive for the Lakers to gamble on? Or is his skill set exactly the type of piece that could make them a legitimate contender this season and beyond? And as the conversation on Sportcenter continued, the focus shifted to what the Lakers would realistically have to give up in order to land Lauri Markkanen. Now, according to several reports, Los Angeles has shown a willingness to take on long-term salary if the deal makes sense. That's an important development, because up until now, the narrative around the Lakers was that they were hesitant, almost resistant, to add any contracts that would tie up their flexibility beyond this season. But Markkanen seems to be the type of player they'd consider making that exception for. One point that came up on the show was that the Lakers probably wouldn't need to sell the farm for Markkanen. Utah, after all, had already explored trading him before his most recent contract, and the Jazz weren't exactly overwhelmed with offers. They've since shifted direction, leaning more heavily on their young talent and building for the future. Markkanen, at 28, doesn't perfectly align with that timeline. He's not old by NBA standards, but he's older than the pieces Danny Ainge seems intent on developing. And with Ainge, one thing is always true: no one is safe. If he doesn't see you as part of the long-term vision, he won't hesitate to move you. That sets the stage for the Lakers. Could they realistically get Markkanen without gutting the roster? It depends on the package. The names floated were Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, Dalton Knecht, and possibly someone like Gabe Vincent or Maxi Kleber. On paper, giving up players like Knecht or Kleber for Markkanen is an easy decision. Markkanen is simply the more proven, productive player. Even Rui Hachimura, while valuable, doesn't offer the same consistent scoring punch or positional flexibility. But once you start including Austin Reeves in the conversation, things become far more complicated. Reeves has grown into more than just a role player in Los Angeles. He's become a fan favorite, a trusted secondary ball handler, and one of the team's most reliable perimeter scorers. Trading him, along with Rui, Knecht, and salary filler, essentially means you're asking Markkanen to replace the production of 2 or 3 rotation players by himself. Is he capable of doing that? Fit-wise, yes. He might slide in seamlessly next to LeBron and AD. But production-wise, it's a tougher sell. And if draft asset, whether that's a future first, a pick swap, or even second, are added to the equation, the deal becomes even harder to stomach. On the program, one analyst pointed out that roster balance would be a major concern. A trade like this would be a 4-for-1 swap, leaving the Lakers thin in terms of depth. That's why the panel highlighted the importance of potential secondary additions. Names like DeAnthony Melton and Al Horford came up, players who could theoretically become available in the aftermath of such a trade. Melton brings backcourt versatility, capable of guarding multiple positions and spacing the floor, while Horford offers veteran leadership and the ability to play both the 4 and the 5. If the Lakers could supplement a Markkanen deal with players like that, the trade begins to make far more sense. And then there's the natural ripple effect of the NBA calendar. Training camp is approaching, rosters are still in flux, and teams will soon have to trim down from expanded off-season groups to the standard 15-man roster. That means buyouts and waivers are on the horizon, which could give the Lakers an opportunity to pick up valuable depth pieces after the fact. A name like Amir Coffey was floated as an example, exactly the type of role player who could become available late and help stabilize depth after a blockbuster trade. The discussion even extended into creative possibilities. Could Los Angeles look to flip Gabe Vincent in a separate deal for a defensive specialist like Matisse Thybulle? Their salaries align almost perfectly. making it at least a theoretical option. Moves like that would allow the Lakers not just to acquire Markkanen, but to reconstruct the supporting cast around him in a way that preserves depth, defense, and flexibility. In short, the debate came down to value versus sacrifice. Lauri Markkanen is absolutely the kind of ceiling-raising piece who could change the trajectory of the Lakers. But the cost, especially if it involves moving Reeves, remains the central sticking point. Right now, both Wiggins and Thybulle sit on expiring deals, but the difference is in value and fit. Thybulle, despite his injury history, brings something the Lakers desperately need: elite perimeter defense with real length. His 7-foot wingspan allows him to disrupt guards and wings alike, something Gabe Vincent, for all his toughness, simply doesn't provide. So if you're talking about swapping Vincent for Thybulle while only attaching a minor draft asset, a second-round pick, not a first, it starts to make a lot of sense. Portland would get value for a player they might lose anyway, and the Lakers would reshape their rotation with more defensive versatility. That potential shift becomes even more interesting when you layer it into the bigger picture. Imagine a scenario where Los Angeles adds Lauri Markkanen, Al Horford, DeAnthony Melton, and Thybulle, while moving on from Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, Dalton Knecht, Gabe Vincent, and Maxi Kleber. Suddenly, the depth chart looks different. Instead of patching holes, you're building out a roster that's deeper, more balanced, and more playoff-ready. You'd still have open roster spots to fill through training camp cuts, buyouts, or minimum signing, something the Lakers have historically been very good at navigating. And here's where the long-term vision comes into play. The Lakers have been vocal. They want to maximize what's left of LeBron James's championship window. Pairing LeBron with Luka Doncic means every move has to be made with contention in mind. A trade for Markkanen, supported by additions like Horford and Melton, checks that box without completely mortgaging the future. Crucially, the team would still keep its first-round picks. That flexibility means that if a true superstar, someone like Giannis Antetokounmpo or Nikola Jokic, were to become available and showed interest in LA, the Lakers would have the ammo to get into the conversation. Picture this: a core of Luka, Giannis, and LeBron, supported by defensive anchors like Thybulle, Jared Vanderbilt, and DeAndre Ayton. Shooting would remain a challenge, sure, but with role players who can hit threes at a respectable clip, you'd be talking about one of the most dangerous defensive units the league has ever seen. It's a scenario that only becomes possible if the Lakers start laying the groundwork now, making smart trades like Markkanen that both elevate the present and preserve future assets. And that's what makes Markkanen so intriguing. At 28 years old, his game is built to age well. He's not overly reliant on elite athleticism, though he can still attack off the dribble and finish strong at the rim. What makes him special is his shooting. Even in a down year, he hit 35% from deep on nearly 9 attempts per game. The 2 years before that, 40% and 39% on high volume. Put him next to LeBron, Luka, and even a floor-spacing big like Ayton, and you've got a stretch forward who forces defenses to make impossible choices. Last season's dip in production had more to do with Utah's direction, openly tanking and limiting his involvement, than his actual decline. On a team chasing a championship, with the kind of playmakers the Lakers have, Markkanen could easily return to those near 40% shooting numbers. That kind of efficiency from a player of his size changes everything offensively. So here's the bottom line. If Los Angeles can land Markkanen without surrendering their future firsts, while reshaping the rotation with complementary veterans like Horford, Melton, and Thybulle, they not only raise their immediate ceiling, but also keep the door open for a potential blockbuster in 2026 or 2027. This isn't just about winning now, it's about building a bridge from the LeBron era into whatever comes next. But that's just my breakdown. What about you guys? Do you think the Lakers should pull the trigger on a deal for Markkanen, even if it means saying goodbye to fan favorites like Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura? Or do you hold out for a bigger fish down the line? Let me know what you think in the comments.